welcome. Okay, so next up we'll be having a panel of 3 people who are going to talk about data center market trends and investment perspectives. The moderator, Jonathan Atkin, is Managing Director, RBC Capital Markets, and he will be taking along his guests, as I guess. Yes, please welcome Jonathan Atkins, the moderator of the next panel, and his panel members.
Is going to be to essentially ask questions of our colleagues Patrick and Eric from EvoSwitch, now Iron Mountain. Maybe just a little bit of background first, though, in terms of where you've been in the industry prior to your current role, starting with Eric.
Yeah, so we built EvoSwitch for the last 10 years in Amsterdam. We realized that we're doing well, but you know, we have to join a bigger company, so that's what we've done in May last year. So since May 25th, we are Iron Mountain Data Centers Europe now, and I'm in the business for 10 years. So,
Patrick, welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. Patrick van der Wild, Commercial Director, Iron Mountain Data Centers for Europe. So on the Iron Mountain payroll since May 25th.
Great. So given the background of Iron Mountain, I think it might be useful for the audience. It's a document storage company. They've been quite active in evaluating ways to diversify beyond their core business into other areas that can leverage their existing enterprise relationships. Data centers has been a big focus of theirs. I'd like to maybe ask either of you to give a little bit of background on how that company, which didn't have originally an IT focus, got into Europe and kind of what is their overall strategy.
yeah, so the original business of Iron Mountain is document management, data storage and recovery, things like that. In the business for more than 60 years, but no data centers yet. So, but I think it's a logical step to do data center, the digital world, etc. So it's all about data. So 3 years ago, Iron Mountain decided to step into the data center world, digital world, and spent more than $2 billion of capital buying data centers.
So what does their footprint currently look like in terms of announced expansions or acquisitions? Where do they currently operate assets?
So right now we're in 12 regions in 3 continents in the world. So America, we got 9 regions, London, Amsterdam and Singapore in Asia. We're looking at FLAP mostly in Europe. So we're based in London and Amsterdam right now. And the next step will be Frankfurt. There will be some news shortly. And then we will go to Paris and some other interesting areas, I think, in Europe.
Perhaps a question for Patrick, if you will, but just the overall demand environment that you see for the industry. Obviously, there could be kind of Netherlands perspective where you're serving regional, even global requirements. But as you've talked about these other markets such as London, Paris, Frankfurt, more from a European-wide perspective, how do you anticipate the leasing trends going forward for the industry and perhaps for your company in particular, and how you might differentiate?
Now about demand for data centers, maybe it's good to go one step back into Iron Mountain demand for data centers. Like Eric said, the company is almost 70 years old. We have coverage in 54 countries, and Iron Mountain is the clear market leader for information storage for, let's say, highly regulated industries. So airlines, manufacturing, medical, and it's the largest data storage company in the world. And now over time, it's one of the best trusted brands in the world. And our client base, which consists of more than 220,000 customers, starts to expect more in terms of digitalization and data and the use of data and the leverage the data. Just for that reason, the digital transformation was initialized, and data centers is a big part of it. And part of the reasons doing data centers is, apart from the customer base we have, is a strong demand that's anticipated now when we go down to Amsterdam and to FLAP. We all know the absorption graphs and the supply that we currently have in Amsterdam and Frankfurt, London and Paris, and the anticipated demand. It will remain very strong. Will be explored in the I think in the ways we saw in the last few years. But there maybe also be some more room for constructors like sale and leaseback, like we did in London and Singapore with Credit Suisse. In some markets, it's hard to get land, capacity, and power. And when you do a sale and leaseback, you have short time to market. You're in the middle of a relevant city like Singapore or Amsterdam. So that's something we may see more in the near future.
So I think this morning there was an interesting presentation from CBRE talking about the major European markets and how cloud demand represents essentially 80%. Is that a number that surprises you? Does it kind of reflect what you're expecting in your particular business or in the markets where you operate?
So 80%?
80.
So for co-location or?
For cloud service providers, so the big hyperscalers
Yeah,
as
that's what
opposed to
we see as
enterprises.
well. So I think what you see in general in the market is that, you know, you used to have a wholesale or retail business, so in the data center business, right? And now you see that it's mixed. So everybody wants to do retail and wholesale at the same time, because I think wholesale and cloud particular is the main business at the moment. So everybody is building hyperscale cloud-ready data centers at the moment in Europe and other parts of the world.
Anything to add, Patrick?
Well, the percentage surprises me at least, yeah.
So thinking about the existing customer base back before the acquisition, you know, you had an interesting position in the market, being Netherlands-based, operating in this market, competing against pan-European, even global players, regional players. How has that kind of affected your thoughts on how to grow the business going forward?
Yeah, so I think we were the only local data center provider focusing on international business. So of course you have other Dutch data center providers, but they were more like for local business. So we were competing against Equinix, Interaction, Digital, and we did quite well. 2016 was the best year, 2017 even better. But I think in 5 years' time from now, I think you know, everybody will be absorbed by all the big ones. So there will be a couple of big ones in Europe, the rest of the world, you know, doing the co-location business, because a big part will be wholesale, cloud, and you have to be big. You have to be, you know, you have to have a lot of capital to buy companies to build bigger, like we did so far.
Yeah.
So we had to join a bigger company. There's no other way.
The Amsterdam market, you know, has seen a lot of activity with land purchases. CyrusOne's publicly referenced, you know, one recently, Agroport A7, and you know, the other players that you mentioned. One of which you mentioned earlier, kind of developing into this market. And you also see kind of a mix of single tenant large land plots meant for one or two CSPs, and then closer in more of kind of the interconnect retail model. How do you see this market specifically the Netherlands developing as it pertains to your business?
I think
I'll start with
He's
Patrick.
looking at me, but
again. I think in Amsterdam we all together managed to build out a fantastic ecosystem over the course of, let's say, 20 years. And the snowball is getting bigger and bigger, and you see the new entrants coming in terms of retail. And it's all about connectivity, tax-friendly, well-educated people, nice place to live. And I think those identical factors are also the basis for, let's say, the hyperscalers. Maybe a different order. So my guess is that those two separate developments really support each other and make the snowball even bigger.
so Netherlands is a small country, right? So what you see in the smaller countries like Netherlands, Belgium, and the Scandinavian countries is that you see the hyperscalers building their own data centers there because it's tax friendly. You know, they can get land and power cheap. And they mix that with co-location, like they do in Holland, right? So in Amsterdam, the hyperscalers also use a lot of co-location with us, and the other data center providers. But in the bigger countries in Europe, you see that they only use co-location so far, like in Germany, for example. And what you see is that they use a lot of co-location. They will keep using co-location, especially in the Netherlands.
So I'm going to maybe ask one more question about market trends, and then we'll have a little bit of time for audience questions in case there are any. We also kind of titled this investment perspective, so that might be an area where I can contribute depending on audience interest. But as we think about 2019 and market trends, what overall themes do you predict for the coming year?
So what you see is that, you know, especially American and Asian data center providers will wanna rule the world, right? You see CyrusOne coming into the Dutch market. We have seen companies from Germany, Japan, so coming into, and Iron Mountain, of course, coming to the Netherlands. I think that trend will go on. And in the end, you know, the world will be run by a couple of big Chinese, Japanese, or American data center providers. So that will keep on for the next year, I think. And we will see more of the Chinese platforms landing in Europe and Netherlands. Yep.
I think the scale of the individual data centers will get bigger and bigger. Just last week we did see 750 square meter data center, and no American was surprised about it anymore. They're building way bigger, and it's hundreds of megawatts. That's going to be the standard.
Audience questions, if there are any. In the back.
Back here, could you go to the gentleman over there?
While he's passing the mic, I guess a question for you then around, you know, you have redevelopment, you've purchased enterprise sites, you're doing greenfield. As we think about cost to develop or how quickly you can develop, are all the tools, you know, there in terms of understanding the cost and how to quickly do it, or are there improvements that you see from a process standpoint or from a cost standpoint on how to get capacity online and start selling?
Yeah, so first of all, it depends on the market you're going to go in, right? So in some markets, there are no EV switches to buy anymore. There's nothing. So you have to do greenfield or brownfield. I think in Amsterdam and Frankfurt, there are not a lot of companies to buy, so you start greenfield or brownfield. If you look at Amsterdam and Frankfurt, the biggest problem we have right now is getting power, right? So the power grid is becoming a problem. Probably Stijn Grove talked about this morning, I guess, because this is one of the things, you know, we have to talk about in the Netherlands with the local government, with the federal government, because that will be a problem. It's the same problem in Frankfurt, for example. So it depends on the market, what we do. Capital is not a problem. That's what we have.
Question.
Yeah, this is sort of tangentially related to data centers, but more to Iron Mountain's business. I'm wondering to what extent you see Iron Mountain and potentially other data center companies investing in the digitalization of analog data and feeding that into kind of a big data-driven or data and analytics-driven business model, where a lot of these legacy companies that you've been serving in insurance and regulatory and whatever are looking at that data that hasn't ever become digital as a potential asset that would impact the valuation of their business and their ability to build new businesses.
Yeah, maybe it's good talking about digital transformation, which data center is part of. We've all other kind of digitization, and there's also kind of an initiative that's called Insight. And don't ask me any follow-up questions on this because I don't know too much about it. But that's the case. Iron Mountain working together with Google, using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and they made a case with an oil company, and they took all their 50, 60, 70 years old information, let the intelligence see what the fingerprints were and are, and what the smartest combination were. That creates new data, new revenues, new oil fields. And that's the kind of the way forward, one of the ways forward, that Iron Mountain will use the information for going into the future.
Time for one more quick one, otherwise we'll adjourn. One final question.
Well, I guess that was it. So thank you very much, Erik BOONSTRA, Patrick van der Wilt, and our moderator, Jonathan ATKIN. There you are. Small token of appreciation. Erik. There you go. Okay. So yes, are you ready for the last round of presentations before we go to the closings? And we will be having enabler for hybrid and multi-cloud solutions with eShelter Innovation Lab. We have 2 speakers ready standing there. LUDWIG VOLKER, the Senior Vice President of Sales, and TOAN, NGUYEN, the Director of Business Development in Cloud Platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome TOAN and LUDWIG.
Hello and good afternoon. Thanks for joining our session. We have split it between my colleague TOAN and myself. And we would like to provide you with an update on eShelter. So we are the new entrant into the Dutch market. The company is born more than 18 years ago and still headquartered in Frankfurt, where the majority of the shares were sold to NTT almost 3 years ago. The core business of eShelter is building and operating data centers, which we typically plan and design ourselves. But it's not just about building and operating great data centers these days. It's obviously also about having the right connectivity available for the customers to interconnect, as well as the right partner ecosystems. The difference and the big differentiator with what eShelter does is, this one is off? Okay. Kannst du mal mit dem Glas was The big differentiator is our innovation lab, where my colleague TOAN will be speaking about in a couple of minutes. eShelter, eShelter is the market leader in Germany and has expanded throughout the German-speaking countries over the last 18 years, and is now entering the Amsterdam market, where we are opening a data center campus with almost 40 megawatts of capacity. The first phase will be ready in April this year, which will provide in total 10 megawatts of capacity to our customers, which consists of hyperscalers, connectivity, and other enterprises looking for high-quality data center capacity. Amsterdam is one of our key markets where the existing eShelter customers from our existing markets, especially hyperscalers, have strong demand for growth. And we are also, besides the markets we are currently operating in, expanding into London, where we build a big campus close to Dagenham, and also move into other markets such as Madrid and South Africa going forward. The evolution in data center is key, and eShelter developed from a provider of building high secure and resilient data centers through adding connectivity and cloud services really to a ecosystem of companies which allows our customers access to all partners and customers within one facility. So our customers in the space of digital value chains are enabled to connect to all the customers and partners they want to cooperate with under one roof within our facilities. So where we had previously strong conversations with people like facility managers and data center managers, this now changed, where we are talking to the IT departments and really the people who are managing the data. Data is key for our customers, and this is probably the most important when valuable good for customers these days. And with this, I would like to hand over to my colleague TOAN, who will be exploring the Innovation Lab, which is really a differentiator on what eShelter does within the colocation space and within what data centers offer in Europe these days. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Volker. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I have a double thing. Okay, let me move this one. Is it still okay? Yeah, thanks a lot, Volker. And as Volker said, so I will be talking about the Innovation Lab. And I think this is a component which is different than other data center operator do in the European market. And before we talk about the Innovation Lab, so obviously I want to give you some drivers behind it. You have seen a lot of facts and figures today, but no surprise, data is new oil, and obviously without data there won't be any AI applications, machine learning, and many other applications, right? And the good news for us in this room and at this conference, everything is growing, which is related to our business, right? Traffic is growing, data is going to grow, and also a lot of more workloads will be deployed into the data center, right? And that's why I think everybody, everyone in this room is excited about the business, right? It's good news for us, we are growing. So at the same time, with a lot of growth and with a lot of new emerging technologies, I think this question comes up. So for a lot of CIOs and chief digital officer, I think it's really a tough time for them these days, right? A lot of new emerging technologies, a lot of new options, and a lot of new partnerships. And so therefore, so obviously there's a lot of headache also, right? Nobody wants to be in this role, I guess, right? So a lot of opportunities and questions. And so we want to help CIOs and CDOs with the Innovation Lab, right? Within our data center facilities. So what is it? And before I jump into our concept, so I want to give you the drivers behind the Innovation Lab and why we started to introduce the Innovation Lab a year ago in Frankfurt. So first of all, I think everybody in this room can agree. These days, if you want to have like a strong IT, you need to have a strong data center platform with specific IT capabilities, right? Server, storage, and all of the fancy technologies that we all know of today. But actually, our customers, they are interested into a digital business model, right? So everybody wants to become the next Amazon, the next Uber, the next Airbnb, and really without owning any assets and at the same time creating new revenue streams. And I strongly believe in order to create a new business model or a digital business model, you have to apply sophisticated technologies like blockchain, like big data, like IoT, like augmented reality, and other stuff. The question is, for a lot of the enterprises and our customers, we have a lot of choices. So what is the right technology for me as an enterprise to convert my existing business into a new digital business, right? So there are a lot of questions to the enterprises, right? In terms of who are the right partners, technology questions, availability, connectivity, and so on and so forth, right? And I've seen a lot of new technologies coming up during my IT journey. And for enterprises, typically they want to test it out and try it out before they really put it into production. And this is where the eShelter Innovation Lab comes into play, right? So whenever enterprises and our customers, they have the questions, okay, how do I apply blockchain in the real world environment? How do I use artificial intelligence and machine learning? That's where we bring in the eShelter Innovation Lab. So the Innovation Lab, so there are two ideas behind it. One is really collaborating with technology partners, with systems integrators, and also startups, right? So that's important. So without our partner ecosystem, we wouldn't be able to provide the use cases in each of the emerging technology fields, right? So the idea behind is really to pre-package, to pre-deploy certain use cases in the in the blockchain space, in the IoT space, in the big data space for enterprises to test it out right away, without really installing and buying the stuff, right? And the photo on the left-hand side here, as you can see, that's a physical snapshot out of the innovation lab in Frankfurt in our Frankfurt 1 campus, right? And then the second idea behind the innovation lab is, since we're engaging with a lot of technology companies, right, we want to also co-innovate with them, right? So really joining forces with our suppliers, with the hyperscalers, and then bringing in new services for enterprises at the same time, right? So it's all about piloting, POCs, test and dev, right, for enterprises, and also co-innovation with our partners. So what's in it, right? So we have a rich ecosystem, and since we have launched the Innovation Lab in Frankfurt, we managed to ramp up more than 100 technology partners, systems integrators, and also the hyperscalers are involved, right? So we have a lot of use cases that can be used and tested out right away. It's a physical room, so we decided consciously to build into our data center a physical room where all of the different stakeholders can come together and really explore the emerging technologies that are required for their business transition, right? And then last but not least, since joining with a lot of partners, we're also giving back a lot of knowledge and content to the community, right? So we're hosting a lot of meetups, webcasts, and running boot camps and hackathons, right? So we want to make technology really tangible with the Innovation Lab approach. So within the Innovation Lab, it's a dedicated environment in our data center campus. So we provide networking capabilities, space, power and cooling. That's obviously our core business. And then together with our other partners, we will then join forces and then bring really the eventual technology pieces together, right, for enterprises to test it out, right? For instance, in this case, this is a drawing how enterprises could evaluate and test out hybrid cloud and multi-cloud environment, right? So everything is pre-deployed in the Innovation Lab, and it's quite easy for us to plug and play and let customers and enterprises to test out like Alibaba Cloud, Amazon Cloud, NTT Cloud, or whatsoever, right? So physically, it's deployed in the Innovation Lab and is pre-configured and pre-deployed. Yeah? So it's quite important for us to have a healthy partner ecosystem. I want to give you, a specific example in the context of co-innovation, right? So one pillar is really collaboration with you guys or with partners, and then on the other hand side, we want to also test out, augmented reality, for instance, in our case. So we decided consciously to build out a Lego model of our Frankfurt 1 campus, right? And we have already started the project. This campus, Lego campus, is already in Frankfurt. And so what we did was basically we augmented the physical layout and the physical model with some AR and VR capabilities, right? And the goal was basically, if we go to conferences or we would bring this model to maybe partner events and customer events and give them a tangible example of what does our campus look like, and what does it feel like to have augmented reality and virtual reality in real life, right? So we would combine, and we did it with some partners that are pretty strong in this space in Frankfurt. Yeah? And that applies also into other technology areas, right? Not only AR, VR, we have partners where we run internally blockchain POCs or IoT POCs. And so this is something that we can also offer to enterprises for them to try out and test. And I think I did mention some facts and figures, and I think a lot of the partners and you guys here in the room are certainly relevant to us, right? So I would like to invite you to join our Innovation Lab ecosystem. We have a broad set of mature technology companies. We have ramped up our startup ecosystem as well. And together with this ecosystem, we run a lot of events, conferences, and generated a lot of new business also for those partners, right? And I think that's really key. Snapshot of the logos. So I think a lot of the logos are well known in the ecosystem, and I think this is really important for our enterprises, because when they come to the Innovation Lab, they expect that everything is available, everything is set up, everything is really pre-installed and pre-configured, and they can restart with their pilot and POC tomorrow, right? Because typically they would have to buy and order and racking and stacking, a lot of effort, right? But in the Innovation Lab, a lot of the stuff is already available and pre-installed. we want to bring the Innovation Lab concept into other regions as well. So I did mention that we started the Innovation Lab in Germany. That's our home turf, I would say. But yeah, so we are bringing the Innovation Lab also to the Amsterdam market and other market, and even to the Asian market, right? Because some of our enterprise customers, their footprint in Europe, in Americas, and also in APAC, and they are also requesting us to run POCs across different countries, across different regions, right? And the idea again is, if a Daimler comes to us, or an Audi, or whatever enterprise that is, right? They can tap into the emerging technologies right away, and even across the globe, right? So you may ask yourself, so how come eShell is also providing some innovation labs in the APAC region? And as Volker said, so as of 2015, we're also part of the NTT ecosystem, which is quite a broad set of different business units and capabilities, which is great for us. And so with that, I want to conclude the presentation. The Innovation Lab, again, is really a platform for us to partner with technology companies, with hyperscalers and the enterprise customers that we have in our facilities and data center campuses, right? And therefore, my call to action to you guys is, if you feel you have the right and relevant, interesting piece of technology, come to us, please talk to us, and really bring your use cases together with us to the local and the enterprise market. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this presentation. Perhaps there are questions